भूखे नहीं करते हैं, खाते हैं।
All right, guys. So good afternoon. Welcome to today's session. So the idea behind putting this on a Saturday afternoon is that Saturday is a weekend. People don't really like to jump out of the bed right in the morning or something like that. So I thought it will be a right time for people to join after 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. So that's the reason we are aimed at 2 p.m. today. That's a pretty good turnout. Around 200 people have registered for the event, and I can see 97 people have joined the meeting. Yeah, thanks for coming. I'll try to make this session as useful as possible for you guys. I'm planning to take this session for about 2 to 3 hours. Sorry. All right. So I request all of you to put yourself on mute, so that no unnecessary disturbance will be caused to a lot of other people that are there in the meeting. It's okay to accidentally sound once in a while, but do your best to be on mute. Okay. So I'll also switch off my video once in a while, switch it on once in a while, so so that I'm working from home, so that persons in my home are comfortable, as well as you'll focus on the content that's there in front of you, rather than fizzle your concentration between one thing or the other. And I'll give some time for each of you to ask some questions. Probably then you'll be able to ask the questions via chat box, preferably, because asking right away is a little tough. And Kabir, are you there?
Yeah, Yashwant, I'm here.
So do you think there is other channel we have for them to post any questions? Do you want to add any comments there?
Yeah. So I was thinking, do you have your Google Slides?
Yeah.
So on Google Slides, you can turn on questions and answers actually, and share that link with everyone, so they can post their questions there, and they can vote on those questions as well.
All right, this sounds good. Let me try to share the slide with you guys in this chat box. Just give me a minute.
Yashwant, if you go to present, on the bottom you will see Q&A. Bottom options, ma'am.
Okay,
you will see Q&A.
sure. Yeah. Okay. So let me do one thing. I'm opening this with my Corp account, which is not good for both the company as well as me. I'll open this with my personal account. I'll do that in a minute.
Yeah. Could just open that Q&A and share that link, and people can go there and post questions.
Yeah, sure. So good afternoon, guys. So before we get into the core session, I'll try to explain some core things you might need to prepare yourself for big companies that generally pop up into mind are the FANG companies. So like you can see FANG are Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. So in this presentation, I'll try to share 3 perspectives of programmers who are currently Google employees. Okay, so one of them will be me. I'm an experienced programmer. I have cracked Google after about 4 to 5 years of experience. And 2 other guys who are 2 freshers who have joined this company as a fresher, fresh out of college. So I'm trying to share this experience because, this will probably help some of you to plan your path to cracking Google interviews or for that matter, any company. Just some technical glitch. Okay. So briefly about me, I'm Yashwant. I'm an undergrad I have done my undergraduate from BITS Pilani, Hyderabad campus. I have a total of about 6.5 to 7 years experience. I'm in Google for the last 1.5 years. I have a CGPA of 6.8. The reason I'm specifying my CGPA is that I'm not the brightest of the brightest candidates in my college, but I have turned things around once I passed out of college and made use of the things that are available to me then and there. And helped myself planned a way that can turn around for me. So it's always important that you land up in a good company that takes good care of you. For example, there are various kinds of companies around us. Some companies, not to mention, are considerate more about the company rather than the employee. The big companies take care of the employees as well as the companies. For example, during this pandemic, I have my friends who have got fired due to the pandemic, and there is my company who are not ready to hire more people but not fire people. So there are differences between the way companies look at the people. So it's always good to join a laid back firm, some company that takes care, some company that have good employee benefits or something like that. So generally these companies for software engineers are the big companies. It's also good to join a startup. Startups are good when you're at the learning phase. I decided to join a bigger company after I have got about 6 years of experience. All my first 5 years of experience are into startups, various companies that are into education sector. Some one of them is into service sector, and one of them is into supply chain management. So I have a mix and match of all the kinds of experiences. I thought were good at that point of time. So back to business. So my perspective. So joining Google is a dream since my third year. So after my campus placement. So in my campus placement, I have managed to join a decent company, that's paying me decently enough, but I was not happy with that. So I started reaching out to people who are like the pro associates in my college. So they suggested me that I should learn data structures and all. And that's when I stumbled upon this concept called data structures and algorithms. I'm an EC guy. I'm good at EC fundamentals, but my job is in software. And at that point of time, there are not many jobs in EC, even for a candidate from BITS. So I decided let's explore software only. So then that's how I started getting into details of software, data structures and algorithms. So my main target is to understand the fundamentals. So I chose 2 courses for these data structures and algorithms. One of the courses is from a website called NPTEL. Most of you must have heard of NPTEL. NPTEL is the website curated to record all the sessions, all the lecture sessions of IIT lecturers and put them at one place. The idea is to provide a platform for the students in rural areas to experience the teaching of an IIT teacher, IIT lecturer. So yeah, for me they were very useful. Many of you might have known about NPTEL. Some of you might be knowing this now. But the idea is, it's something like a Udemy or Coursera, but all the content is from IITs. That's the only difference. So I went to NPTEL and I went to Stanford website also. There is this course called Specialization in Algorithms by a lecturer called Tim Roughgarden. So this is the course. Don't worry, I'll share this slide deck to everybody. You don't have to hurry in noting this down or something. So this guy is my favorite lecturer. So I enrolled to this course as well, and he has done a very great job of explaining all the fundamentals of algorithms and data structures. This course will help you understand the core concepts of data structures. After that, the onus is on you to practice the basic concepts that are there in the data structures and take it from there. After that, I started giving interviews to various companies. Preparation is only half part of what your plan of the journey. Your preparation only will help you get ready, let's say, to the airport. But flying from there is something altogether a different plate of meal. So the idea is preparation can span any number of days, but the process of starting to give interviews should begin as soon as possible, because let's say you have gained X amount of knowledge because of preparation. Let's say you need Y amount of knowledge for getting hired to a company. Always X and Y are not equal. There is some difference between what you learned and what you need. So what you need will be taught by only when you go and start giving interviews. So my dear friends, I know there is pandemic right now, but if you're planning to change, start giving interviews as soon as possible. It's okay to fail. It's always okay to fail. I started in my first company in my 13th interview. So it's important that you start giving your interviews as soon as possible. Preparation will fall in place after you start giving interviews. That's very important. So you can also take. So yeah, that's my journey. I started giving interviews, and one fine day I landed in this Google career page. I started applying to job roles there. They called me. I gave interview. I had about four on-campus rounds. One was a Hangouts round, which was done sometime around 10 p.m. in the evening from somebody from New York. First round was done. Then second, third, fourth round were called. I was called there on site in the Google Hyderabad office. So yeah, the 2, 3, 4 rounds were done by my teammates. They're pretty good. The first round is on data structures and algorithms. The Hangouts round is also on data structures and algorithms. The third round is done by my team lead. He asked me some design questions and some database related questions. The data structures and algorithms knowledge will take you as far as the first 2 rounds of any big company's interview. It is always important that you have the knowledge of fundamentals of computer science like OS and design. OS concepts can be handled by revising your college topics, or you can take up some course like that we are doing right now and brush up your OS topics. Database design is helpful for very, very helpful for companies like Oracle. Oracle is very stringent on testing people on database. So if you're planning to go attend an interview of Oracle, it's not mandatory, but it's good that you have some amount of knowledge about databases. So coming back to my interview experience, the third round was done by my tech lead. Some design questions. Design questions are basically solutions to the real world problems using the technology that you have in your project. So your experience of 2 years or your experience of 3 years will help you to crack, will help you to design the question, the problem that the interviewer gave, and design it in the technological terms that he expects. So it's very important that you learn about your current project in your work. For example, let's say you're working on some AWS project, or you're working on some website, or you're an L4 support guy in some service company that's there. So apart from closing the tickets that you're doing, you should also understand the architecture of the application that you're working on. You should also understand the architecture of the things that are going around, of why the tickets are coming, why what is what, and some such things should always be handy for you. That's very important. So yeah, that's about the design questions that you have. Your experience in the software industry will help you solve the design questions. So I have recorded a small experience of mine in a YouTube video. So when you have time, you can take a look at this short video. It's just 6 minutes. I'll share the deck. You can go through later. So I'm going to share the experience of another fresher. This guy is an alumni of, I think, NIT Tiruchirappalli or some NIT. So he was doing his MTech there, integrated dual degree course there, MS course there. So in the final year, he started preparation. Basically, what he did was brush up all his algorithms. And there is this exam called Kickstart by Google. So this is Kickstart by Google. These are Google coding competitions. These competitions happen about 7 times a year. You can start enrolling, start giving coding competitions. These are just competitions like you see in HackerRank or some other coding competitions you see anywhere else. You start giving these rounds, as many as possible. So focus on improvising the score now compared to the previous attempt. It's very important. So you start giving these exams, and as you keep on improving, if you get some fine rank in one of these tests, you'll be called for an interview. My friend got a rank around 400 or something. So he got an interview call after. He got an interview call after this test that he gave. So the path for you to reach Google is, one of the ways is this Kickstart. Otherwise, you can always go to the career page of Google and start applying. So this is career page of Google. You can search for whatever job you want. You can see their qualifications. Yeah, there starts your journey. So this is about the second guy. The third guy's journey is not very different. So he has done similar things. He came to his final year. He started giving tests in this Kickstart coding competition that's organized by Google. And yeah, that's how he got called for the interview that's happened there. Shortly, he emphasizes that your resume should be perfect. Whatever you write on your resume, you should be able to ask. You should be able to answer the questions that are written on your resume. Data structures and algorithm definitely very important. Hash tables, stack, space-time complexity, and if you have more than 3 years of experience, it is expected from you that you write unit tests also for your code, and some knowledge of discrete math is also important. Discrete maths, something like probability, NCK problems, OS system design, and if you're greater than 5 years of experience, it's mandated that you will be asked a design question. Also, there are some standard questions for Google, like how internet works, how search works, load balancer. So you should be at a position to you should be at a position to answer these questions. Okay, just a second. All right. So let's get to the core of today's target. So I'll be trying to help you understand some fundamentals of algorithms that will help you in day-to-day interviews of big companies. So yeah, about this course, like I was saying, this will take about 2 to 3 hours. Basic concepts, basic idea of various concepts of algorithms. I'll touch probably few problems per topic. We won't be writing any code, but we will be taking advantage of already written code that's there in Geeks for Geeks. Geeks for Geeks is like my favorite website for interview preparation. So we will take advantage of whatever is content is there in the Geeks for Geeks. Considering this is a crash course, if if we involve writing code, it will take obviously a lot of time. I'll try to answer questions every once in a while. The sessions will be of 50 minutes each, and 10 minutes break between 50 minutes is what I'm planning. And let's see how it goes. Yeah, and you can ask questions in the link that I shared in the chat box. Also, there might be power loss once in a while, but just wait for 5-10 minutes. I hope the power will come back in between and we resume the session. So let's hope that doesn't happen also. So this course structure, I'll be trying to discuss asymptotic analysis, basic data structures, recursion, binary searching, divide and conquer, quicksort, some parts of probability, and some parts of heaps. So let's get started. So what is asymptotic analysis? So asymptotic analysis basically defines that for a given approach, for a given solution to a problem, when the problem size, when the input given to this solution is very large, how will this solution behave? That's the agenda, that's the aim of this asymptotic analysis. Like I was saying, let's see what's the funda that some other parts of all the world things. Asymptotic analysis is basically when the input size is very large, when it is increasing like anything, how will the solution will behave? How will the analysis behave? So we'll try to formulate the asymptotic behavior of the application. So we call it BIGO notation. So for a given n input size, what is the kind of what's the kind of funda around this n, and how can we quantify the execution of the solution of the given input is what is called as big O of n. So if for a given input size of n, if the solution looks at all the n input elements, then it's generally perceived that the runtime is about O of n. So basically, I'm trying to say if there's only one visit to almost all the elements and there are no nested visits. And there are nested visits, then the order is of order n. Yeah, so we will try to see more examples and will help you understand, which will help you understand some more details of this big O notation. So some examples are like binary search has got an asymptotic behavior of log n. We'll see what that means. Linear search has got an asymptotic reach of about order of n. Heap sort, med sort, they are about order of n log n. Bubble sort, insertion sort, they are about order of n square. So n power some constant. Let's take example of binary search. Binary search is something that runs on a sorted array. So the input that we give to binary search is generally a sorted array. The idea is to find a given element. So one way is to find the element is, look at each and every element and see if the element is what we need. But that involves visiting each and every element. That means the order of execution of this algorithm is about order of n. So it's always important that we optimize the approach that we take for the solution. So, binary search is a better way in finding a given element. In binary search, we keep on decreasing the problem size to half so that the problem in hand is reduced by half every time. So let's say the size of the array is 10. In the first attempt, our problem size is 10. So in the next attempt, we look at only half of the array, either the first half or the second half, based on the middle element that we take. So in the second step, our problem size is basically half, which is about 4 or 5. And in the next step, it's even smaller, 2 or 3, something like that. So in every step, the problem goes down by about half. Total number of steps will be about log n to the base 2. That's the idea of binary search. I hope that's clear to some extent. And let's get back to the next one. Similarly, there is linear search. Linear search is basically looking at the whole array, or looking at all the inputs that are there and finding out. So heap sort is also there. Heap sort is, iteratively find the minimum element and put it in the output. So we find this minimum element about n times, and finding each minimum element takes about log n time. So the order of this running is about order of n log n. Similarly, there is med sort. Med sort is basically, dividing the problem into half and then uniting them into a sorted array. And this goes on happening for almost all the remaining halves. That's the idea of med sort. I'm not trying to go into details of many of this because these are fundamentals of almost all the algorithms that you learn anywhere. So I'm leaving this exploration of some of these concepts to you guys. So you can take a look at some of these links that I provided here. That will help you delve deeper into some of these concepts that are there. So that's about asymptotic analysis that I have in my mind. Let's see if there are any questions that are floating around. So one question I can see is how to represent the CV showing your experience in DS. So when you mention the problems that you solved, you have used data structures and algorithms while solving them. It's up to the interviewer to check your experience in the data structure and algorithm. But if you mention this, that we have written optimized code based on latest approaches that are there available in the algorithms and stuff like that, the interviewee generally gets the idea that you are good at algorithms, and he starts firing questions at this data structures and algorithms. So yeah, your resume is expected to contain the terms, and the interviewer will take care of asking the questions for you. Okay. Let's discuss some of the basic data structures and algorithms. So some of the data structures and algorithms are arrays, strings, stacks, queue, and trees. So these are also some basic data structures, that are understood. I'm assuming these are some knowledge that you have already, and I will move on to the next topic because a few more topics are a little more interesting. Let's discuss briefly about recursion also. Recursion is basically implementing the same logic on a smaller set of problem. For example, we have factorial. Factorial of 1 is 1, 2 is 2 into the factorial of the one before. Similarly, factorial of n is n into factorial of the one before. So for factorial, this is the kind of recursive code that we write. And so recursion is something that funda we should have in our box to fire up for any question that comes into the to the daily coding task that we have. Some of the intimate applications of recursion is tree traversal, basic, and there are always interview questions that will be very tricky. So there are things that can be written very easily with iteration, but they'll be interested in asking you to write this in a recursive manner. Yeah, we can get into the details of these problems in some other session maybe. So yeah, let's move on. So divide and conquer is one other kind of algorithm. That's pretty basic in the algorithms. Let me try to show some examples of this divide and conquer algorithms. Just give me a minute. So divide and conquer, like the name suggests, we're trying to divide the problem into smaller number of sizes of the same given problem, and we'll try to find solutions to the small set of problems that are there. Let's take one example. Met sort is one best example that's out there. The met sort is something you see every day. The standard example of the divide and conquer. I'll try to explain a different perspective of this divide and conquer algorithm. So this is one problem that's a little offbeat from the mainstream divide and conquer. So this slide is taken from the course that I have discussed. This is a Coursera course by Mr. Tim Roughgarden. So he quotes an example of how to count inversions in a given array. So let's see. So this slide will be a little clumsy, it's all written in his handwriting. I'll try to explain as much as possible in uh, as much as possible in the given handwriting. So let's see how it goes. So the problem is array A containing numbers 1, 2, 3, and so on in some arbitrary order. We have to count the number of inversion. Inversion is the number of pairs ij of array where indices with I less than j and a of I is greater than a of j. So let's say we have an array. One, three, five, two, four, six. So the pairs, if we sort this array, this is the final output that we'll get 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6. And for this final output, what are the swaps that are there? You know, the how do I put this? So this is the actual order, and for 5 to come to its original place, it has to cross 2 positions. So that's basically one inversion. Similarly, for 3 to cross to its actual position, it has to jump 1 place. For 2, there are 2 inversions. For given I less than j, if a of I is a of greater than j, that's something called as inversion. So let's try to attempt to count the number of inversions that are there in the given array. Before that, let's try to understand largest number of possible inversions that in a six element array. For a given ij, a of I is a of greater than j, that's one inversion. How many inversions are possible in a given array? NC2 number of inversions are possible in a given array. So how do we solve this? Brute force method takes about O of n square. Divide and conquer takes even lesser. So just so how do we solve this given problem? We'll try to apply divide and conquer to this given problem. So idea of divide and conquer is count the number of inversions in the first half, then count the number of inversions in the second half, then count the number of inversions from first half to second half. So the idea is, there are few numbers in the first half, there are few numbers in the second half also. So when sorting this, if the number from first half moves to second half, that's one inversion. So when this merge happens, when the number from first half jumps to second half, that's when one inversion will happen. So we'll try to write code for the same. So if n equal to 1, return 0. X is count for the first half, y is count for the second half. Z is the count when the inversion between the first and the second. We will try to use the logic of merge sort, and we'll try to use the logic of merge sort, and on top of it use this modify some parts of the merge sort to count the number of inversions that are there. The idea, so yeah, like we were saying, the first half, count of first half plus count of second half plus the sum of the split inversion that are present in the split that is there that we're trying to merge. If we can implement the split merge in the best possible time, we will try to solve this problem as soon as possible. I mean, I'm trying to say, if we try to implement this count of split inversions in the minimum possible time, the output will be the optimized output. So this is the pseudocode for merge. We have two arrays, B and C. D is the resultant output array. So while creating D, for the D to be sorted, we need to put the smallest of the two arrays. Okay, so if we put the element of B into D, there will be no inversion. But if we put the element of C to D, that will be counted as one inversion. So let's say this is B, this is C, and this is D. So how do we get to the final array? The smallest of the two, one here. Next, the smallest is basically present in C. So the number of inversions because of C will be, 2, because the first array already has 2 elements left in it. And the second element is basically coming from the second array. So 2 has crossed 2 elements to come into the final array. So the number of inversions here will be 2. The next smallest will be 3. The next smallest is 4. But when the 4 comes, there is one element in the first array. So there's one more inversion. Total inversions is 3. Next comes 5. And when 6 comes, there are no inversions. So basically, when merging, the number of elements present in the first element, while an element comes in the second element, is the number of inversions that are there in an array. So divide and conquer is something that we put into this and count, we calculated the solution for the array of size about 6 by breaking it down into 2 arrays of size 3 each. So, and 135 is probably the result of breaking down of this array into 2 smaller arrays. Similarly, breaking down of these arrays into 2 smaller arrays, and that's how generally merge sort works. That's how divide and conquer works. The idea is to simplify the solution to smaller problems and recursively create the end result and merge the end results that are there. So that's about divide and conquer. One other topic I would like to discuss in this session is about quicksort. So many of you must be knowing what sorting is. So, sorting is basically putting all the given elements in either increasing order or decreasing order. Half the solutions to almost all the interview questions come after we sort the given input. Keep in mind, sorting is very important. So if you sort the given input in some order and apply the logic, then it's always easy to solve the problem. So, but which sorting to implement, which sort algorithm did you implement is another frequent question that comes into the interview when you say that you have sorted the input. So the best solution should be an optimized sort, and merge sort is one other sorting algorithm that sorts the given input in the fastest way. But merge sort takes a huge amount of memory. It takes about O of n square size of memory. Quicksort is something that happens in place. So for very large inputs, it's not always possible that the system might have twice the number of the size of inputs that are there for doing the sort. So quicksort is something that comes in handy when you have large inputs and memory is some kind of a constraint. So we'll discuss about quicksort in some time. Time is about 2:50. Let's take a break for about 10 minutes. I'll come back. I'll get back at 3 o'clock if that's fine.